Hello and welcome back to the channel. I've been meaning to do this video for a while now, and I'm just getting around to it, of the kind of compilation of what I did to finish my Storm Shadow costume. And so you may see me look down at my computer every once in a while to remind myself of what I did here, but the initial goal was Storm Shadow, like in the Sunbow animated series of my childhood. Storm Shadow was from 1984. He was in the second group of characters that they released. He came out with the second G.I. Joe miniseries, The Revenge of Cobra, and that was where we first saw him. His first comic appearance was actually in the infamous issue 21, I believe it was, of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, the silent comic where there are no lines of dialogue the whole time. It deals with Snake Eyes, and we also get the appearance of Storm Shadow there as well. So, just to bring you up to speed to where I was at a point, I had ordered a lot of pieces. I ordered some wrist wraps like boxers use. I ordered short ones for the wrist and forearm, and I ordered longer ones for the legs and the tabby to keep the pants tight in there. I had ordered a sash belt that was of satin because the Kung Fu sash seemed to more fit. And I had a balaclava. I had a gi top that I modified so that it was sleeveless, and then the pants, and then of course my ninja tabi that came in. Well, then I was working on his accessories. I worked on the backpack, and there are a few shots of me with the backpack on, just kind of testing the proof of concept. I actually fabricated the backpack using a sling pack that I had gotten from a conference as the base, since it already had attached straps and everything was already good. And then I used a foamcore project board to mock out the actual box, as it were. And then I measured where the arrows would go, how many arrows I would need. I took a bunch of 5/16 dowel rods and basically cut them in half. They were 36 inches long. I only really needed about 7 3/4 to 8 inches to stick out above the box, based on some scale measurements that I had taken off of the toy, and to get everything in the proper perspective and scale for other things. So mocked up the box, had my two katanas that I made sure that they were going into the backpack at the same angle as the initial toy, because that changed a lot in the series. And so we had those things put together and even made a way for them to catch or continue going through. Finished manufacturing the arrows by adding the fletchings to the end of them. Of course, I made the fletchings from feathers that I had, some craft feathers, to later spray paint those items. I did a dual-tone spray paint effect on the katana blade, so it would get that carbon steel forging process somewhat in subtlety. Did a single coat of satin black paint to see how that would help the foam core look and maybe seal it up a little bit. And it was looking pretty good, but decided to go further and go the extra mile. And then we actually covered the pack in satin fabric and line the interior with felt, so that it would look kind of like a traditional lacquered box that maybe had been covered with fabric or such. So we did that. I also had a first experiment in using Worbla, and I did the traditional Worbla sandwich where I cut out the buckle for Storm Shadow's chest strap out of foam, a thinner foam, and then I took 2 pieces of Worbla that I had mirrored and kind of heat gun sandwiched them over the foam, so that gave me a rigid sort of buckle, and then I went through the process of spraying it and painting it. So then the backpack was completed. The last thing, order of business, was using my wife's vinyl cutting machine to cut out the traditional Cobra organization logo to be on the upper left chest on the gi. And so I added those, and here in there is a video with some portions of me finishing some of the painting on some of the weapons and accessories for a little bit, so you can check that out. And then we will follow up with what the final aftermath is after some of the in-process photos there. I'm experimenting with something else new. I'm going to try to show a little bit of the process of me working on some of my Storm Shadow stuff. I have a couple of Shuriken that I fabricated out of EVA foam, the type of mats like you would use like in a gym or a playroom sort of thing. And I've already dremeled them and shaved them down to where they look pretty okay. So now I've got handy dandy heat gun that's going to help seal some of these cells and firm it up so that we can then spray on a layer of the Plasti-Dip stuff. I also added the guard and the Kashira, I think it is. Anyway, the end cap basically on the sword, and those are both done from foam as well, so I'll need to heat those. I don't want to get them too hot because I had already done my wrappings, and then I'll be able to mask this off so that I can Plasti-Dip it as well. So and then I've also got a little child's bow that I can put on the backpack. I took off some of the pieces that aren't as consistent, and then I'm going to get it into the consistent sort of black color that most of Storm Shadow's accessories are. So first I'm going to start with the heat gun. Do its thing. Basically, this sort of any open cells that were created when you were making your item, it kind of helps them kind of melt down a little bit and self-seal, so that when you get to the painting step, it takes the paint more evenly. So and it doesn't just drink up your paint over and over and over. So this is one kind of step in sealing it. The other step being using the Plasti-Dip that will help finish sealing out those cells, so that you're not just having to paint and paint and paint until you basically fill the sponge with paint. So now I don't want to stay focused on one side for too long. One, because I'll burn my hand because I'm not using anything to hold these with right now. But two, because if you heat the EVA foam too much on one side, it shrinks those cells and will cause it to start to curl in the direction that you're heating. This is also a useful process for if you're trying to mold and shape your foam to get curves in it or things like that. You can use the heat and work on one side and gradually make what was a flat sheet of foam into something a little less flat. So there's one, and we'll work on the second. And I don't know how well you can see, but it gradually, you can see a change in the look of the foam. Now you don't want to get it so hot that it starts bubbling and stuff, but you can see a little bit change in the shade of the foam as those cells sort of close up. Which is what you're wanting. You're not wanting to create bubbles so much on the surface as you are just wanting to see a little change of shade, just enough to show you that, okay, I have sealed some of those cells that were then exposed by the process of shaping and molding and cutting the foam. Once again, not staying on any one side too much so that it doesn't start curling. Okay, now I move to my swords. I'm going to be extra careful with these because I don't want to ruin what I've already done. Once again, being careful to keep moving the object so that it's not getting too much heat concentrated in any one spot. Just for a quick manner of comparison, if you can kind of see, now this has a little bit of a shine or a shimmer to it that this one doesn't, because that's just that difference in look that lets you know that you are really getting somewhere and sealing the device. So let me do the other one. Another word of warning with this sort of thing is if you did your construction with hot glue, this is where the problems will start to come up, because the heat will once again melt your glue. So generally this is good if you're using some other type of contact adhesive, not so much the hot glue, because you will not be able to heat it sufficiently without the hot glue starting to get gummy and loose. Alright, now I can start the masking process for my swords. I just want to mask them enough to keep the paint or Plasti-Dip from getting where I don't want them to be. And I'm just using paper so I don't have to like spend a fortune in masking tape, because this painter's tape sometimes can be a little on the pricey side. Okay, so I wrapped the paper, and I'm going to take the masking tape and get it as close to the edge of what I want masked as possible, and just it'll end up holding that paper in place, but also giving me a nice clean line between what I'm painting and what I'm not wanting painted. Okay, there's that. Now that I've got it masked, I just need to do the other one, and they will be ready for spraying. So, since I made the hole large enough in the Shuriken, I can actually slide it down on the blade, and I can use that as a holder for my Shuriken, so that they get Plasti-Dipped as well. Of course. So then, if we read our instructions, you generally have to shake the can vigorously for 1 full minute. So here goes. hold can 6 to 10 inches from surface, moving back and forth. Also going to lay out a few sheets of paper so that I don't make a mess of my little working space here. It'll also give me a place to lay it down while I'm waiting for it to dry. Okay, and here we go. Nice, well ventilated area. Here we go. So yeah, I think I like that better. We'll go ahead and take this one off. Once again, anything that you do with this sort of stuff, I mean, a lot of times you're paving the way of doing a thing, and you can change it as you go. Nothing says you have to stick to a technique that isn't working. And now you'll gradually take your time and give it allow 30 minutes minimum between coats. So through the wonders of editing magic, you won't have to sit and wait for all that. You'll see something else in a little bit. So this is how it looks now that we've got our first coat on. Got to do that. But you can see it's still drying in some places. You can see the wet look of it in some. But once that completely dries, then we can put another coat on it. The Shuriken are doing nicely. Just a little bit of shimmer to them still left on that. And the other. And so then we will be able to finish out the coloring on that. We'll actually finish making the Shurikens silver, like the blades, and we'll probably stay with the black coloration for the guard and the hand grip on the katanas. But anyway, that's after one coat. It'll probably dry in another 15 more minutes or so. Okay, now for the fun part, the unveiling the masking. I went ahead and did the paint layer, and so now my Shuriken are kind of shiny and still drying a little bit, but they're dry to touch. Good enough. Kind of looks like hammered sort of metal. I probably should get some more paint for the bow, but I was just trying to take a toy bow and give it some black. It's only going to be for looks anyway. This is not going to be functional, so I'll just touch it up with some paint. I may use some of the satin brush on paint that I have. And now the big finale. This is the wakizashi, the smaller of the two samurai swords. So we'll see how the masking did. So I gradually unwrap my tape. Unwrap a little. Oh, well, I guess I can just slide it off. Okay, so there's the blade where it meets the handle. Looking nice. I think we'll start with the pommel end, the cap end, and we unwrap that. Okay, then we'll do the top end and there, maybe with a little touch up of some black, but we have our wakizashi. Then do the same with the Katana, the Shoto, as it were. I think I like the way I taped that one better. It's easier to remove. If I can find the last, there it is. Alright. And there's the Shoto Katana. So it's pretty good. So altogether we've got Shuriken. Okay, so you saw a little bit of how I went about painting some of those pieces. I wish I would have caught more video of the in-process part, but I'm still getting the hang of this whole documenting what I'm doing sort of thing. It's easier to take pictures of it and talk about it later, because I am just not real good at remembering either to record it or then after I've done the thing, coming back to edit and put together the video. But then in a rush, I was in such a rush that I forgot to tuck the shuriken and the knife in the front sash. But I took my submission photos for the Fighting 788th G.I. Joe and Cobra costuming club and submitted them, and then it was the waiting process. Actually, it wasn't a long wait at all. It just had to go through the administrative chain of command and then determine whether or not I had done a fairly accurate representation of the character, and then they came back to me, I believe it was Sunday, maybe Monday, and let me know that I had been accepted for that kit. And so that added my third 788th kit that I've put together, my second Cobra, and I basically they give you an image with you behind the traditional background like on the action figure packages from the 80s, so that's kind of cool, and you can see those there. So till next time, probably one of my next special sort of videos that I put together will be of our experiences at the Mississippi Comic-Con this weekend, and I will get to meet Keone Young, the voice of the 80s Storm Shadow. So, till next time, keep it PG.